So today I'll be continuing to take a look at a scenario where civilization starts over. In the last episode we saw some pretty interesting things happen, like some more exploration and the colony by the Deerlandians being made over here in North America. Also we saw Hibernia keeping expanding and exploring over here in South America, and we saw a failed civil war over here in the Second Romani Republic. But at the end of the last video we saw a coalition form over here against Derlandia, as we saw the Diamond Alliance, which was initially the North Roman Ivorian Alliance, get a lot more members and going to war against Derlandia in a coalition against them. And in this episode we'll see how this coalition plays out. So let's stop yapping and get straight into this video. So from where we left off, we'll go over to Derlandia and the Derlandian coalition, as the coalition started over Derlandia declaring war on Nambium, and this is exactly what they will keep for now doing. They haven't fought Nambium in a very long time, so this comes as a disadvantage for both of them, but Derlandia was a bit more prepared, so they'll do pretty well against the battle with them. But Derlandia has an extra strategy over Nambium, and this is that they will not send troops over here through the Norwegian part, which is a mistake they did in the last 2 wars, as this part is pretty frozen and pretty mountainous. Instead they'll send their divisions over in here towards the Swedish part, take their capital, and from there reduce them to nothingness. And this is their strategy that they will apply, and this will be a pretty dang good strategy as they are getting close to their capital, which is pretty dang good for them, and this is by far their best shot against Nambium, and this is by far their most successful war against them for now. Although they do get stopped right on the doorsteps of the capital, and Nambium, with the help of Finland, will be successful in repelling the Landian forces, for now letting their capital breathe a little bit better and send some troops over in here, causing a bit of a hazard for the Derlandian forces, but for now Derlandia is pretty well mobilized over in here, so they will not fall completely. But then going over here to Eastern Europe, oh well, when Derlandia sees themselves in a war with North Romia being able to reclaim their old lands, they immediately go in and start taking lands from them, totally smashing them around. They kinda go ham on them, they smash through their border, they take the entirety of the border, and now this leads to some pretty interesting relations between them and Ivoria. They're at war, so this doesn't help. But they've been here, they had a border with each other for a very long time, so it's pretty weird to see them now as enemies, but this will not stop them from duking it out. More exactly, Derlandia will go over their border with Ivoria and start also invading them. Now their main forces are not focused in there, they are mostly focused on Nambium and North Romia, so for now the advancements will be a bit small, but also they do go quite a bit into Ivoria to kind of, well, stop them from fighting them. But after this they will use this opportunity to go even more and attack North Romia, as they hope to retake control over them. If you remember, they gained independence a few episodes ago in that rebellion they had, and they were supplied by a lot of the Russian countries. Therefore this is why they are all in this coalition now, as they developed some pretty friendly relations. But it's about here that North Romia finally stops to their Landian advancements. Now we'll see North Romia starting to do some pushbacks of their own, and now they cut back to the border with their Landia, retake these lands that they used to own. But overall the advancements stop around here, with a pretty big stalemate taking place. Now interestingly enough, we'll go over here to the Balkans, because we'll have the Yugoslavian nation joining the coalition against Derlandia, as now they start to invade over here. And if you are wondering what their main goal in this war is, going over to the province layer, their main goal is to retake these two provinces that were once part of the Romani Empire. Now these guys are theocratic, they are very religious based, so their main goal is to kind of unify their whole Romani religion over in here. Not necessarily to reform the empire, that's definitely not their goal, but their goal is to reclaim land and reclaim parts of their religion, and that's what they do as they take these lands. And from here we will see Derlandia having some issues with instability. And we see Romia rebelling away from Derlandia. And we see the Roman forces start to advance over here in Derlandia and to invade them, hoping to gain their independence and to take control over the entire Polish regions of Derlandia, which is kinda around where the real life border would be between like Germany and Poland, but like a bit more like this. But yeah, this is what they hope to accomplish, and they will attempt to do just that as they send their units up here in the south to the border of the Farmers Union, which is pretty much all in favor of having Romia be independent. Actually the Farmers Union isn't too fond of Derlandia, they aren't too friendly with them. And now going over to this big pile of land, pretty much Ivoria will go and sweep across these territories that were once theirs. After this we see North Romia going back and reclaiming all their former territories that Derlandia has occupied from them, while also the Roman rebellion goes and takes these lands over in here, not really allowing North Romia to take anything, but they are alright with this as they are still pretty friendly. Now not North Romia, now Romia goes over in here and starts to advance over in here. But now the Roman forces will keep advancing over in this part, while the North Romians go over here and retake all their territories from Derlandia, freeing their nation. And now they go around and start to make some advancements over in here into the Derlandian territories, having quite a bit of success actually. From here we'll see Romia go ahead and also take the rest of these territories, and together we'll start to fight the Derlandians and push them out of the Polish regions, as now Romia goes and meets up with the sea, which is very good for them. They have kind of made an L shape over in here, and now Derlandia will pretty much fall apart. Now Nambium, with help from Finland and all their allies, will go ahead and re-liberate all their territories from Derlandia. Derlandia has pretty much withdrawn all their troops from here, and now Nambium will start to do some advancements on their own, as they are quite familiar with these lands. They've invaded them in the past, so they'll have little to no issue in doing so modern day as well. Now we'll see Nambium also move across these parts into Sweden, going and taking this part over in here, which is pretty dang valuable, which is not good for Derlandia. And now they make a landing over into this island, which kind of destroys the naval supremacy of Derlandia, and from here they'll do some advancements over in here into Norway. And now Derlandia is crying, understandably so. They are starting to lose to some countries that have seemed weaker than them, but now when they are all allying together, they are getting overwhelmed. Oh, would you look at that? We see a lot of rebellions here into the North American colony of Derlandia, their very recently started colony. They are already having issues controlling it, and this mostly has to do with the fact that they are getting crushed back home, and now all the main military generals that are in charge of taking care of the colonies, they are now rebelling away, and they will pretty easily kick the Derlandians out. The Netherlands have pretty much already withdrawn all their armies back home and only left again these like few generals in here, which will have a pretty easy time pushing in and taking back these territories. Does Derlandia try to take them back in any way or to stop them from rebelling? Heck no, they have some way bigger issues back home, which are their capitals being threatened, so they pretty much just gave up their colony. This is about how the colony will get split, this is how it will get relinquished with these three nations over in here, and now Derlandia has lost their North American colony. And now they are about to lose their mainland. Whoa. Now we see Teria joining the coalition against Derlandia. This is a very shocking move considering that back in the past in the War of Empires we saw Teria and Derlandia cooperating. You know, they fought together against Merodria and the Romani Empire, and they seemed that they had some nice relations. But apparently they don't, and Teria now joins the coalition against Derlandia, and funny enough this is not even all. We see Jetia, the Lime French nation, also joining the coalition against Derlandia, and now Derlandia is gonna get crushed. And immediately we see Jetia hop the border with Derlandia. They quickly go and take the Brittany Peninsula. Now they go around Normandy and take these lands that Derlandia had gotten back in the War of Empires, some very historical lands. And now they go up here through their Belgian lands and starting to get very alarmingly close to the Derlandian capital, at least one of them being the Dutch capital, which in fact is their main capital, with the second capital, their German one. This is kind of like a second capital in case the first one gets taken, and it seems like it might be put into use very soon. Now we see Nambium sweeping through the rest of the Derlandian Scandinavian lands. Now Derlandia has lost all of these lands over in here. They are crumbled, they can no longer really keep control of these lands, so they'll get relinquished over to Nambium. And with this we see Derlandia being kicked out of Scandinavia. Now we see Romia starting to also sweep across their lands over here into Germany, and now also getting alarmingly close to the German capital of Derlandia. They go like this and also get very, and I mean very close to taking it. And then we see the battles in the Derlandian capitals begin. We see the Roman forces being sent through here, and we see them meeting up with the Derlandian German capital, about where Hamburg would be in real life. They encircle it from the south, and from there they go up here in the north into the Denmark peninsula. They take these lands, and now they encircle the city, and from here, after some very fierce fighting, they manage to capture the city. And then we see Jetia, the French country, go through here and send their troops through here, take these Dutch lands so that Derlandia can't reconnect with their capital. They encircle it and then they take it. And after this happens, Derlandia will finally surrender and call for peace, and we can take a look at the very huge peace treaty of this war. Oh gosh. Well, in this peace treaty, Derlandia has been screwed. First of all, we'll go to North America, where the Derlandian colony gets released as these three separate nations. This kind of seafoam greenish country, the little New England nation in here, and the Newfoundland in here. These three nations have broke away from Derlandia and are now independent. Therefore, Derlandia had lost their colony in North America. Then going into Europe, we see first of all that Nambium, the main country that got invaded during the war, to have the coalition happened. Well, these guys now take all of Scandinavia from Derlandia, so Derlandia finally loses all of Scandinavia, and Nambium unites it all under their nation, making Derlandia way weaker. Then over here we do not see that many countries from the coalition actually gain land. For example, North Romia doesn't gain anything, and this is because now Romia, or if you wanna call it again, South Romania gains independence from Derlandia over in here, and they are a pretty big and powerful nation formed out of the Polish regions of Derlandia. Then we see Vitia, the Yugoslav nation, retake their little lands over in here, and then Getia, the Lime French nation, takes their lands over here in Normandy and Brittany from Derlandia. And out of this war, Derlandia is left only with their German, Dutch and English lands. And now Derlandia is considerably way weaker. Now going away from this war and from the Derlandian coalition, because this took a lot of time, now we are gonna go over here to China, where finally we are gonna have these lands get explored. Now hold on a second, not all of it, but we'll have some of it starting to get explored. First of all, we'll have some explorations take place over here into the Vietnamese regions, and some pretty successful exploration takes place in here, also discovering this little Chinese island. And also over into here we see these guys go ahead and explore some parts over in here from the Tibetan areas. And first of all, the one to kind of look at potentially taking these regions is this Pakistani nation in here. They are pretty, not expansionist, but they do like the ideas of becoming bigger. Not really expansionist, but more so imperialist kind of. Anyway, it doesn't matter, as now we see even more parts over in here. I'm not sure if I accidentally just made them discover the Himalayan mountains. I hope I didn't, but whatever. And for the final explorations over here into China, they'll take place over here in Mongolia. We see Haurus and the new Chinese nation, or my bad, Mongolian. China hasn't been explored yet, but it's about to, as now we see these guys go over here and start to explore some lands in here. It's going pretty nice for them. They are finally exploring these lands that kind of got left out after the ending of the mass explorations in the Age of Empires. And now we see some explorations over here in Korea, but now the explorations will end around here. Now I'm gonna say, for the lore, these explorations didn't take place just now in this episode, in episode 16, but have started around 2 episodes ago and have continued up until this episode, and this is what they have explored so far. And finally, going over here to the pirates in Indonesia, they'll start to discover some lands over here in Papua New Guinea, or the Papua Island, to kind of call it that, because there's no Papua New Guinea yet. But they'll go like this and discover some land, and then they kind of see something in the distance. They decide to go and explore it, and would you look at that, they have just discovered Australia. Well, now this is pretty huge, and they go around and explore all of this kind of mini peninsula in here. And this is huge because now there have been explorations in all continents except Antarctica, but there have been explorations in all of the main 6 continents. And now Oceania is the last one of the 6 main continents to get discovered by the pirates, and exploration will continue like that. Now this will not be as huge as the discovery of the Americas, but they will be pretty happy with it. So they will kind of go around like this and then also discover these areas, and from here they kind of found out that they can get from here from Timor-Leste, which makes their explorations even easier. They kind of go like this, and this is what they have explored so far, but for now they don't go any further because this have been quite a bit of exploration. And for the final event of the video, we'll have the pirates in Indonesia go ahead and claim the rest of the Java island, expanding their territory and growing bigger and bigger. And our first stop for today is over here in North America, where in the last episode we saw that Derlandia has lost their colonies in North America, and we now have these 3 independent countries, kind of being a very early version of the US. And these countries, at first, they will keep doing exactly what they were doing under their landia, and this is to explore some of North America. You know, they did get independence from their landia, but this doesn't mean that they do not want to explore these lands. So this is exactly what they all do, as they also go here along the Mississippi River and start exploring through the south, meeting up with around the Florida regions and up here, encircling the Great Lakes and finding this other lake in here. This is a pretty big dang amount of exploration, and these countries, now being free with their own governments, will also go ahead and expand a little. First of all, the New England country will turn more into a New York country as they take all this land and become pretty big and way more noticeable on the map. And second of all, we see the Quebec country go around and take some more territories like this, and they will claim these northern parts of Quebec. As for the Newfoundland country, they are kind of sandwiched in here between the two other nations, so instead of exploring or going to war, they'll make an alliance with one of these two countries, and this is the New York country. Now I should probably not call these guys the New York country because they are not really in New York yet. I should probably call them that only after they get to New York. But even then, we'll see the formation of the 4-point star alliance between these two guys. But after these two nations make the 4-point star alliance, now the Quebec country will be pretty pissed about this. They'll be like, hey, why didn't you also invite me into this? And they kinda leave them on red, and the relations get cut between the two sides. That's right, chat, we are starting to have drama in the Americas, and this will prompt the Quebec country to start expanding even more across these lands they have already explored previously, and now they'll be conquering them and going like this, taking all this land plus this little island further away, and now they do become definitely the biggest and the strongest of the North American countries. But if you add up the power of the New York and Newfoundland country, they are slightly stronger than Quebec, so we'll see about that. Now I should address the fact that these three guys aren't the only countries in North America. Now yes, as full independent sovereign countries, yes, these are the only three ones, but throughout North America there's a lot of indigenous tribes and mini civilizations over in here, like in real life. But compared to real life, there was no big colonial empire to colonize the entire continent and pretty much kill everyone in here. Now granted, because of their land, yeah, some tribes did get killed over in here where these three countries are, but most of them had been left independent to grow, and now we are gonna mark some of the bigger tribes in North America. Well, these are all the new countries I have added, and I'm gonna say again, these countries did exist previously. In fact, some of them date back to like the times of episode 4 or 5, but now we are marking them because these are some of the more important North American tribes, and these are gonna be the ones we're gonna be talking about. And to kind of break it down, we have a country over in here in the Hudson Bay, one at the Great Lakes, a Mississippi country, a Louisiana country, a country here around Carolina, Cuba, Yucatan, some countries over here in Mexico, Texas, some Californian countries, Nevada. Then we have the Dakotan Empire, which is huge in here. And then finally we have some countries here on the Canadian coast, in Alaska, and in Vancouver. Now, although these people over in here didn't discover yet these tribes over in here, they did discover these four, but I'll also mark the explored territories of these other tribes. So first of all, the Louisianan tribe didn't go too far. I'm gonna say these tribes were also nomadic. For example, the one here in Louisiana initially originated in Florida. Also, then the Cuban one knows about the entire Cuba island, and not only getting their explored lands and like marking what they have explored so far, but also they do some explorations now. As for the Mexican country, they know about a bunch of land over in here into inner Mexico and along the coast. And for these two guys, they have explored a lot in the Baja and here on the Mexican coast. And they do know about this entire chunk of land, which is pretty impressive for them, but these two have been pretty friendly with each other, so it makes sense. And also these guys have not explored that much. That was mostly because of some leaders, some expansionist leaders that pretty much expanded the country into all the explored lands. And here for this Texan country, they do meet up with the sea. This is something recent that happened in like the last 10 years since I marked them on the map. Now definitely the biggest piece of explored land resides over here between the Nevada country and the Dakotan Empire, as these countries pretty much had an entire world of their own. The Dakotan Empire, it's pretty much it's kind of like the Roman Empire of North America, because they have explored the hellish amount of land over in here, almost even meeting up with the southern country in there in New Mexico. And this is all the land that they have explored. And now for the last couple of countries, they haven't done a crazy amount of exploration. For example, the Californian country had done very little. They've only done this. And this is currently what's explored by all the countries in the world combined from North America. Now the European descendants over in here, they do not know about these tribes in here yet, and the tribes don't know about the outsiders, but they are about to meet each other very soon. Now we're gonna go back to Asia, not to China yet, because a country is actually gonna expand here for once, and this is gonna be the Pakistani nation. Now this Pakistani nation isn't known to be one of the most strongest of nations in the world, but they are looking forward towards expansionism and about growing their nation and becoming stronger. First of all, with a new leader, and with the help of a new leader, they'll gain this land in here, followed by the next couple of others. Also important to note that this happened in parallel to the explorations over here in North America, but these guys will go and expand a lot more, now even meeting up with the border of the Central Asian purple team, and then they will expand across these huge amounts of Afghan and Pakistani lands into Asia, and eventually they will take all of this land. And shortly after, we'll also see this purple nation take a page out of their book and also start to expand quite a bit, and they will be claiming all these lands, and I'm gonna be, well, fixing these borders, they're horrendous. Alright, much better. And now these two Pakistani nations had expanded a bit, and don't think that the Red Indian nation is gonna forget about this and is gonna miss out on this, as now they are also expanding and they are gonna be claiming some lands over in here, followed by the Brown Indian nation also going around and claiming some new lands. Now their intentions are to go more into the Bengali areas. Most exactly, their goal is to reach over here up into the Malacca Peninsula or around the border with it. So for now they'll do just that, and they'll be exploring and expanding into these Bengali areas. Then this orange country will also find itself expanding over in here and meeting up with the Caspian Sea, which is great for them. Until then they only had this lake to, well, to live off of, But now with the Caspian Sea, this is a way better water source, which leads to, well, better everything in their nation. They have better water to drink, they have better water to fish in, and like get food and stuff. So this is honestly pretty dang good for them. And then the Grey Nation will see what they are doing, and they'll decide that, you know what, we want some too. So they'll start to expand over into these lands, and although not as successful, they will end up getting some land over in here. And then a very radical leader over in the blue country will kind of have a vision and a pretty big question: how east could we go? Like, only how east could we expand? So he will pretty much just do that. He'll pretty much just send a lot of armies over in here to, well, claim land over in here, also kind of thickening their borders like this. And then they kind of go around, and then they have a pretty bloody war here with Hauria. Hauria will pretty much just send their armies back at them and, well, push them into here. And pretty much when they get back over to here, this is where they surrender and die. But this is not for nothing, as we do still see the blue team, as the Mongol forces didn't go over to here. They'll be able to expand pretty heavily into these regions, forming a pretty notable empire over here in the Central Asian parts. Now the countries around see the lessening amount of land in Central Asia, so we'll see the blue country starting to expand over in here and do end up claiming this piece of land. Then similar, we see the orange country over in here also start to expand here, and they do get this piece of land. The Grey Nation, although they just expanded, will do another expansion. They barely meet up with the sea, and then they kind of focus on going here in the south, and they will end up claiming all these lands. And finally we see the greenish lime nation over in here. They also go around and expand, and they do end up taking these lands. Here we see pretty much what gets partitioned out of Central Asia for now. Now we'll see Raksim go ahead and claim this archipelago of islands in the Indian Ocean. But going down south to their neighbor, being the pirates in Indonesia, they will keep exploring over in here. Now in the last episode, they have explored Australia, and in fact they have discovered Australia, which is definitely one of their biggest achievements so far, discovering a whole new continent. But now they'll go ahead and explore the rest of Papua New Guinea, and from here they go and discover a lot of these islands here in the Pacific. But next they'll go back to exploring Australia, and now they discover this land, and they have a pretty big shortcut over in here from Timor-Leste to Australia, which definitely helps them a lot. And then we see them making a huge amount of discovery, as first of all they discover this entire big piece of land thingy, and with this they explore all of these parts from Australia, discovering a lot of the oceanic continent. And now the pirates are doing great. They are almost at their peak. Spoiler alert, they will be at their peak in a few episodes, but they are starting to get there, as now they are exploring a lot of Oceania, and they are having a lot of success doing that, as now they discover pretty much all of northern Australia. And now we see Taiwan being explored by, well, explorers over in here. And now we'll go to our daily exploration in China, as now we see a lot of exploration happening over here around the Himalayan mountains, as now people are starting to venture in there. Most of them do not come out alive, but it's pretty brave of them for, well, trying. But explorations continue around in here through Myanmar and in the Chinese regions over in here that are pretty mountainous, but despite that they do still have a lot of success in doing so, and they will continue exploring like this through these parts. And also I'm gonna say this, similar to North America, China also has a lot of tribes over in here, but we are gonna discuss those in the next episode. But now going over here to Persdia, in the last couple of episodes we did see them collapse, as you know, in during the age of fragmentation they were a very huge country. They had territory from Sri Lanka over to the Red Indian nation, but they kind of got a bit unstable, and with a whole bunch of rebellions and independence wars they have lost all that land, and now they are reduced only here to South India. But they do feel like now, with all these Indian countries becoming strong and growing, they feel like they do not want to miss out on these expansions. So they will actually go to war with one of these countries, and they will go to war with Sabisha, this skin country over in here. Now Persian troops will barge over the border with Sabisha and start to invade this country. Now if you remember back in episode 5 when India first got discovered, Persia and Sabisha were the very first two countries over in here, and back from then they had a pretty big rivalry, and this rivalry will now come in the age of conflict to affect these two countries, as now they go to war, as Persia wants to bring back its influence while Sabisha wants to, not die. But Sabisha will be successful in repelling Persian attacks over in here and not allow them to invade in this part. But on the coast it's a whole different story, as Persia is way more prepared in here and has sent most of their divisions in here to capture the capital. Now granted, Sabisha is able to push them back to their border over in here and also push them quite a bit in these parts. Now they are unsuccessful in fully pushing them back to the border and kicking them out of the nation, and that's mostly because now Persia goes and captures their capital, which is pretty bad for them. And from here Persia will kinda go inner into their territory and kinda make multiple kind of groups like this, kind of more encirclements, until pretty much the entire nation will fall over to Persia, and we can take a look at the peace treaty between these two. And in the peace treaty, Persia fully annexes Sabisha. Now this is huge because, Sabisha has existed for a very long time, and Persia did seem pretty weak, but now they have just shown that they are still strong by annexing one of the oldest and most significant countries from this region. And with this, Persia once again becomes a top power over here in India, and it seems like they are on the run to become a top 10 power once again. And for one of the final events of the video, we'll now have a war breaking out between these two Siberian nations. But now we are gonna have the war breakout, and at first it's the red country which has the advantage now. They are the way stronger country, as they hold the capital of the former nation that existed in here, so they are gonna be pretty easily pushing in here. And as for these countries, none of them is strong. In fact, I'm gonna say they are all very weak. Like, probably the number of soldiers these countries are using, it's probably only triple digits of soldiers on both armies. But anyway, the red army will absolutely crush the skin one. Now the skin one is a bit better off in like cold fighting, so they will push them a bit in here. But similar enough to what we saw in Persia and Sabisha, we now see the red country pushing over here. They'll take their capital, and after this country will surrender. And in the peace treaty we see the red country taking all of this land from the skin country. Now the skin country is even weaker than they used to be, and the red country becomes stronger, so this might be a pretty interesting start to their imperial ideals that they have. And for the final event of the video, we are now gonna go back to Hibernia. Now it's about here that they land in Cuba and meet up with the Orange Cuban nation, and they are actually gonna be pretty friendly. In fact, they are gonna be very friendly with each other. And for the other things that Hibernia will do, they'll go around and explore a bit of Central America. They now explore here into Cuba, and then they go even further into the inner continent around the Amazon rainforest. Now yet they do not venture into the Amazon rainforest. That thing is very hard to explore to, and even like to just go through. So they will just go around like this over the Amazon and just be happy with exploring these pieces of land, which is still pretty nice. They now explore this, and their explorations are going really well, discovering even more tribes on the way. For the first event of this video, we are gonna go over here to China, and that's because the exploration will continue in here. First we'll have the Hokkaido island of Japan be explored in here, followed by some final and more explorations over in here into the Chinese territories, and then we are gonna see some more explorations over here across the Himalayas because of these two nations that expanded here in the last episode. And from here it seems like the Himalayan part is about to get cut off from the main Chinese part, but similar enough to how we saw in the last episode, a lot of tribes appearing over here in North America. We are now gonna introduce the Chinese tribes. And here it is, our new map with all the Chinese tribes added to it. And we have here a Nepali tribe, two middle Chinese tribes. Then we see a lot of tribes here on the coast, with this blue one being the second strongest out of all these countries. Then next door we see the Korean country, which is by far the strongest out of these. Then in Japan we see this green Japanese country, and here in the north we see two massive countries in Mongolia and in Manchuria. Very big nations, and these are definitely way stronger and way more advanced tribes compared to the ones that we had in the last episode in North America. And similar enough, now they'll get discovered by humans and also explore land of their own. First, with the countries that are already explored and discovered by humans, they'll now explore together with the rest of the world these parts of land over in here around Vladivostok, kind of where Russia is in real life. Then going like this, they also end up meeting with Korea, as Korea was recently exploring through these parts and even starting to make settlements in here. Even more surprising than with the North American tribes, these guys are even more friendlier with the outside world. You know, these guys are actually pretty advanced, which is pretty interesting. Now most of these aren't even tribes at this point, because it's just they've been here for a very long time, you know, since the ending of the mass explorations. And now we kind of need to discuss how they actually formed, because speaking of, during the mass explorations, you know, well, people were exploring through here. They discovered Siberia, they discovered Southeast Asia, and of course some people did go into China, and those people ended up, well, remaining in there. And over the span of over 1,000 years, they had formed all these 10 civilizations over in here, and very impressive and important settlements. And that's pretty much how these countries got formed. But anyway, now they will keep exploring over in here together with the outsiders, with like people from like these Siberian countries, the Chinese countries, or from the stronger countries in the world like Teria, Aldicta or Derlandia. They also work together to discover this river in here, and from here we see the entire Chinese coast getting discovered and explored, and this is a huge step for humanity. It doesn't require one more than a lucky sail to Japan to discover the green Japanese country, and together with them they'll discover the rest of the archipelago of Japan, so now also Japan is explored. But going back to China, explorations are going awesome. They are discovering a lot of land, all these tribes together, and honestly I shouldn't even call them tribes because these aren't really tribes, these are more like countries. In fact, they are countries, you know. They have like stable governments and stuff, so they are very impressive settlements and civilizations. But anyway, now they will continue to explore over in these lands, as now they discover this dark red civilization and this orange civilization, and I'm gonna say, yeah, these ones are definitely tribes. These are way weaker and way more at the beginning, but they do stop exploring here where they get to the Himalayas, where a nation in here is waiting for them. And now almost all of China is explored, and probably in the next episode or the episode after that we'll see Asia being fully explored, and this is a very big achievement for the world, as now pretty much the entire earth is starting to, well, be explored and be mapped out. So the earth is starting to get fully explored slowly but surely. And now we are gonna come back to North America for a second, and this is for a very good reason, because now we are gonna see the Dakotan Empire meet up with the outside countries, and this is a very shocking and very important event for the world. And yes, at first the Dakotan Empire does clash with the outside countries, and understandably the outside countries do win, but after a quick compromise they decide to put aside their differences and explore North America together. And first of all they go and explore the North American territories around this dark side nation over in here, so their borders get fully explored just like this. And then they also go and explore over in here in the south and meet up with the light blue country over in here, discovering them. And also with the help of them they'll now go over in here and meet up with the Texan country over in here and start to explore more across the continent, as now they start to like push inner into here and discover more and more land. But it's around here that they stop, as this is a lot of exploration for some very young countries and newly discovered countries, plus the fact that it's pretty recent after the Dakotan Empire had met up with the outside world. And now this leads to a very interesting map of North America, which pretty much consists of this Quebec part to the Mississippi River, to the Dakota Territory, to Nevada, and then over here into Texas, which is a pretty interesting map of North America. But we are not gonna leave North America yet, and this is because now we'll see these guys over in here, the two Mexican countries, the two North Mexican countries will go around and meet up here with the South Mexican country, or Purple Mexico if you wanna call it that, and they do meet up, and again they at first clash against each other, but after some quick compromises they become friendly and kind of start to explore together. And also for the final exploration over here in North America, we see the Louisiana country start to explore here around Florida. But now going back to China, we are gonna see a new country forming around in here, as now with all these newly explored areas, you know, a lot of people are now gonna start to migrate from pretty much all the countries around the world, and now they'll go over here into China to set up new civilizations. The first country that's gonna be forming is around here. It's a Chinese country. It's a very big Chinese country over in here, and it's pretty much entirely formed out of migrating people from Europe and North Africa coming over here into China to form a big and powerful country. And the second country that will be formed is none other than Vietnam. This is a grey Vietnamese country that forms over in here, kind of similar to the green Chinese country. It's also very it also has a very big population of migrating people from Europe and North Africa, but this one also has a lot more Asian people, like here from Southeast Asia and from China being part of it. And now coming to the Korean Empire, they will also take this island and also this tiny island over in here in the big Chinese Sea over in here, and they grow larger, and again they are the strongest country in this region, and they are benefiting a lot from trade with the outside world. Then we also see a country forming over here in Hokkaido, Japan. They will be taking the entire island, and well, now they have a country over in here. They are pretty strong, and again they are kind of a mix of indigenous people with migration, with like migrating people, and similar enough to the other countries, they are kind of a mix with indigenous people and migrating people from other countries across the globe, and now they have got exactly what they wanted, and this is a country over here in Japan. But now coming back to these two little countries over in here, they will be expanding first the orange one and then the dark red one as they expand pretty heavily over in here due to a pretty big population boom, again from like migrating people coming over here into Asia and profiting off of these new lands. And now we'll also see the skin Siberian country over in here, which lost the war in Siberia over here in the last episode. They'll now be expanding over here into these new lands and be claiming them for themselves, and now they also grow bigger and larger on the map. But now it's time for a pretty big war. And for this war we'll need to go over here into Asia, but not here into East Asia, but rather into Southeast Asia, because some stuff is gonna be happening between Maxim and the pirates over in here. Recently the pirates have been thriving over in here. They have explored a lot of Australia and Oceania, and they've been doing great, but now under the power of a new leader, they'll now decide that it's time for some expansion over into the Indonesian archipelago, and now they'll start to expand into these lands. They'll colonize them, but someone will see this and will not be very happy, and this is Raksim, and they are not at all happy with the fact that the pirates are expanding into these lands, as they kind of see them impeding on their territory. Now, how are they doing that? I don't know, ask them, but they will kind of come with the counter attack. As now Raksim will also come here in Sumatra and start taking over the rest of the island, and we'll kind of have a race between them over who can get more of the island, and it's gonna be pretty easily the pirates as they are already in here. I mean, heck, their capital is on this island. And now I'm gonna give these guys an official border. This is now the official border, but after this the pirates are gonna be very mad at Raksim because they have taken a lot of land that they wanted to take, and now they are accusing Raksim of impeding on their territory. Again, how are they doing this? I guess you could ask them, but some stuff goes very wrong between them, and then the pirates over here declare full sovereignty and independence. Now, more exactly, I'm gonna say this: the pirates aren't really recognized as an independent country across the world. There's like very few countries which actually recognize them as independent, But now they will kind of declare independence and kind of tell the world, hey, recognize me as independent. No one will really like no one will really listen to them, and most especially Raksim will not listen to this, and will have a war break out between the two, and will have the start of the Indonesian war. First of all, we'll see Raksim hop the border with the pirate state and start to push into their territory, and they will push pretty well. Now let's remember these guys are pirates, so they are kind of meant to be on the boats and on the sea, and because of this they have a lot of ports that are like very hard to take. So it's because of this reason that Raksim isn't able to capture the coast. But this doesn't really matter because they are absolutely crushing the pirates into the main inner territories of their nation, and it does seem like this is the end of the pirates, as now they are losing pretty badly, and we already see a spearhead starting to form towards their capital over here on the coast. But it is here that Raksim will realize who they are actually fighting against with. They are fighting not against any regular nation, they are fighting against pirates. So they'll do something pretty evil, will send their ships, the pirates will send their ships over here across the Bay of Bengal, and they will make a landing onto these islands over in here of Raksim and pretty much totally destroy their naval supremacy in here as they take this archipelago of islands, and from here they make a landing over in here and take their capital. Now this isn't good at all now, is it? Well, guess what? It's not. And this was actually the pirates' plan. Basically they wanted to let Raksim push here into their mainland so that the pirates could use all their force with all their ships, all their pirates, all their troops to send them through here, capture this archipelago, and from there take their capital. This plan ended up successfully. And after this, Raksim will pretty much be crushed. We'll have the pirates go over here and capture the entire northern part, and now they're starting to push down through the peninsula, and now Raksim is pretty much dead. And then we immediately see Raksim being kicked out of the pirates' territory, and now they go ahead and start to push into their territories over here on the Sumatra island, which is pretty funny considering that not very long ago they are the ones that were pushed, but now the pirates have pulled an Uno reversed card, and with this they managed to take the entire Sumatra island away from Raksim, and now they are only left with their little portion here in the Malacca Peninsula, in which the pirates make a landing, and after this we'll see Raksim surrendering over to the pirates. The pirates have won, and we'll take a look at the peace treaty. And in the peace treaty we see that now the pirate state will gain its independence and will get recognized as an independent country by the world after their very huge win in this war. And more exactly, they get all of Sumatra Island and take this archipelago from Raksim, and also the rest of Raksim is turned into a puppet state of the Al-Asabi pirate state. And the Al-Asabi state will be the name of this new country that will gain its independence over in here. Now it did exist previously, but now they get full recognition from the world as a sovereign state, and with this we see the formation of the Al-Asabi pirate state. And our first stop for today will be none other than Central Asia, and that's because there's been this empty pocket of land for quite a while. No one has claimed this land, no countries over in here had claimed it, so this region will end up becoming its own nation, and this will be this green Caspian nation over in here. And for the capital of this new nation in Caspia, their capital will be over in here on this kind of mini peninsula over in here. But yeah, now they have a capital, and with this we have a new Caspian nation over in here. filling all the pocket from Central Asia over in here. But not leaving the Central Asian region. After we see this country forming, now we'll have these two countries over in here, the orange and brown countries. They'll come together to divide up this land and make a land border between the two. The set partition will look like this, with the orange country taking a lot of lands over in here, and then the maroon nation over in here will take these lands. And now these two countries have partitioned this land over in here, now having a land border and now taking even more land and becoming bigger. Now going over to Lavender, Siberia. These guys haven't done anything since they have gained their independence a few episodes ago, but now they will be expanding greatly towards the east, as they are looking similar enough to also the former countries over in here. They are looking forward uniting the region under one kind of grand empire, and they will attempt to do that, and they will be pretty dang successful at doing so, as now they move here through the east, and they will be claiming all of these regions. And with this, the Lavender Siberian country will expand greatly. Alright, change my mind a bit and I'll alter a bit the borders, but we'll have Haurus taking that one province, and over in here the Lavender country will again expand greatly through these lands. And they will also get inspiration from the Red Nation over in here, and these guys will go around like this and decide to expand even more towards the south, as these regions are a bit better to live in. I mean, they are better than freaking cold and frozen Siberia, and they will be successful in conquering all of these territories, thus making their country way bigger and way, well, larger and stronger with this. But now we are gonna go over to this limeish green nation over in the Mongolian regions, and this is because these guys are cooking something up. Since they have met in the last episode with the outside world, these guys have been quite inspired in expansionism, so they'll go for this and make a great expansion to the Baikal Lake. And these guys will be expanding a lot by taking all of this huge piece of land, and now these guys are an immense country, they are huge, and now they are looking even more towards their goal of becoming a strong country, again like these guys over in here. Now going to the Alasabi pirates, now these guys will be expanding a lot, and by a lot I pretty much mean the entire Borneo island, and that now they go through, and also expand through these islands. Now with these under their control, it will be easier to explore Australia, and also they will be taking this big island in here. And now these guys are really starting to skyrocket in the power rankings, now with them entering the top 10 strongest countries in the world, which is pretty dang scary considering these guys are pirates. But now we are gonna go back to North America, because exploration in this continent is pretty much at its peak, as now we'll have all of the Florida area being explored by the tribes and by the colonizers over in here. And now this little Louisiana tribe will also get discovered by these people, and it will go pretty much as well as it did for now, with these guys, with these two groups assimilating very well, and again exploration in North America and in general life in North America is starting to be really good. As for the Mexican group over in here, they are pretty much in a world of their own, as they continue to explore on their own, and now they meet up with the Yucatan group over in here, and these guys are really not friendly, and this is actually one of the few times we saw exploring people not get along with the indigenous people, and there's some pretty brutal fighting between these two. Now over in Alaska we see some explorations being made by these few groups. Now these are easily the weakest tribes from North America. These guys are descendants from Asia, similar enough to real life. Even then they are like not very strong, but they are successful in exploring some more lands and kind of making their own little sphere of influence over in here. But now going to the opposite of North America, in South America, Hibernia is having a lot of success exploring through South America. Now they've been doing this for pretty much their whole existence in here. So at this point they've gotten pretty assimilated with the continent, and now similar enough to how we had in episode 17 the North American tribes, and in episode 18 the East Asian tribes. Now in episode 19 we are going to introduce the South American tribes. Well, first of all, my voice is about to die. Second of all, I've added all the South American tribes. So outside Hibernia, which is the outsider, we have a country here in Ecuador, two Peruvian nations, a couple countries here in Chile and Argentina, kind of a Bolivian nation in here, and two Brazilian nations in here. Now kind of similar to China, these countries have been here for a while, therefore that's kind of the reason why they are so big and so strong. But outside that, I mean, yeah, pretty easily Hibernia is the strongest in here. But other than that, now we also got these countries here in South America, which some of them have already been discovered, some are waiting to become discovered. As we continue to see exploration over in here from the Peruvian nations, now most of the exploration is actually inside their territory. That's mostly done by Hibernia to kind of get used to these new tribes. But these guys also kind of help them explore over here in the south. And with this, they'll now meet over with the South Chilean country, and also with their help they'll kind of go down south over here to the green Chilean Argentinian country. But these guys are very unfriendly, and actually when they meet these explorer groups, they actually capture them and put them in prison, and well, bye bye your explorers. Now this is gonna lead to like a lot of bad relations and tension between Hibernia and these countries here on the coast and the Lime Nation, so we'll see what happens, but expect a war here. And also over here to the Brazilian nations. Now Blue Brazil is actually one of the weaker countries in here. Now not the weakest, that might very well go to this country in here, but they are not as strong as you might think. But even then they will be able to help Hibernia explore over in here, and then even make some explorations over to this green Brazilian country, which also helps them do just that as they continue to explore some territories over in here. And now they'll proceed to move more along the coast and also reach this kind of Uruguayan nation. Now these guys aren't the friendliest, but they are not aggressive, so although they will not help them in their exploration, they will allow them to go through here and not put them in jail like this guy. But speaking of this guy, as now these guys move through here and get around the Buenos Aires area, they'll also encounter the Lime Nation, and the same thing happens to these explorers, as these guys put them in jail and also will say goodbye to their explorers as well. And with this, South American exploration will stop for now, as this guy is kind of sabotaging them. But now guess what, we'll have a man over here from the South Argentinian nation. He'll hop on a boat with like a pretty big fleet, and they'll actually go through the Drake Passage. Now this is a very dangerous zone, there's like a lot of currents and stuff, so this is not the best place to navigate. but somehow, some way they will end up alive, and they'll actually make a landing in a territory that so far they haven't seen before. They don't know what this is, but I'll tell them what this is, and this is Big Ol' Antarctica. And with this, we officially have explorations in all the 7 continents of the Earth. Now there's at least a tiny bit of explored land in all of the continents. Now the only ones that have been fully 100% explored so far are Africa and Europe, and Asia is pretty close to also becoming fully 100% explored, and also efforts are made in North, South Americas and in Oceania. So now the main focus of this country, the South Argentinians, will be to explore to Antarctica. Now of course this territory is very cold, so most of the people here die, but they are successful in discovering that island, which it's kind of okay to explore. But other than that, they kinda go around and be like, you know what, we are just gonna explore this entire peninsula. And once they do explore the entire peninsula, they will be like, let's get the F out of here, we do not want to be here. Now as soon as they arrive back home with like half of the people gone, they'll tell everyone that, hey, we pretty much just went down south and we discovered a new piece of land, which seems to be a new continent. But now we'll go back to Africa. Now Africa is a continent that we haven't discussed in a very long time, in fact since the age of fragmentation. But this continent was pretty much left untouched for like a lot of time, but finally some stuff will happen in this continent, as now we'll have a lot of countries pop out throughout Africa and some countries will be expanding. First of all, we'll see the formation of a kind of Morocco-Mauritanian nation over in here, which is actually pretty large. Then this country over in here, which has been sitting here collecting dust, will be expanding for like the first time in its history since they have taken these islands, and now they also become bigger and stronger. Then we'll see the formation of this massive country over here in the Sahara, kind of being a successor state to the 2 countries that used to be in here, but it's a bit different as again there's been a lot of tribes, and at one point kind of one leader came and managed to conquer a lot of these tribes, and he managed to form this nation here. Then we'll see the apparition of a Namibia nation, a dark blue Namibia nation over in here. And then we'll see this goldy country in here expanding, as well as we also see a new Mozambique country, a green Mozambique country forming over in here. Then we'll see the formation of a South Madagascar country in here. And for the final territories in Africa for this episode, we are gonna be having this pink nation over in here expanding to these new lands, making them very large. And also we see a new nation over here, south of Aldicta, from their former Tanzanian territories over in here that they used to have a very long time ago. And over the years this had led to the formation of this country over in here. And now let's add capitals to all our new countries in Africa. And now I have added capitals to all the new countries in Africa, ranging from this guy over in here to the lavender country in here to this couple of southern nations in here. And now we are also done with Africa for today. And for the second to last event of this video, we'll go over into here in Manchuria, where we are gonna have the Korean Empire and the Manchurian country expand a bit. And after the expansions over in here, first of all, going to the Korean Empire, we'll see them taking a lot of land over into these regions. And for the Manchurian nation, they'll be taking a huge amount of land over in here, now having sea access and also making for some pretty interesting borders. But this is a lot of land, so we'll see if they can keep up with stability. But now for the final event of the video, we'll have to go over here to Teria because we are going to discuss some pretty serious lore about them. And this is the fact that their relations are not going well at all with a certain country. This certain country is none other than Aldicta. Now Aldicta is the first country ever in the world, and Teria is the third oldest country in the world. They are both OG countries, and across history they've kinda changed from being friendly to being enemies, to loving each other, to hating each other, to fighting wars against each other, and most recently in the War of Empires, we saw Teria and Aldicta be very friendly, and together they managed to take down Merodria. But ever since, relations between them have been pretty bad, and this mostly revolves around the Eritrean claims of Teria. Now Aldicta pretty much just says, yeah, you should let this go. Their reason, they just want to go ahead and take this stand for them, which will kinda make them look like this. But Teria doesn't like at all the idea of them losing land. Even though they are a pretty friendly country, they of course do not want to lose any land. Also, this land was quite important to them in the war, which is a pretty big argument that Teria has against them releasing this land. And then Aldicta will pretty much go around to as many countries as they can and get a bunch of countries that aren't really too fond of Teria to form a coalition against them. This is the coalition map. Now all the countries with the circle shape on them are part of this coalition, and to kind of make it easier for you, there's Aldicta, the Pokian Union, the two African Union countries over in here, Tanish, which is pretty surprising again considering that they've been allies in the War of Empires. Then we also see these two Crimean countries over in here. Then we see these two Pakistani and Afghan nations in here. And finally we see this Indian nation over in here. All these 10 nations will be declaring war on Teria to finally destroy their empire and destroy their dominance over in the Middle East, and hopefully put an end to their empire once and for all. The first bits of fighting will be over here into Africa between Teria and Aldicta, because these guys are not having good relations at all. Now if you remember from the last episode, Aldicta was the one that initiated this coalition against Teria. The primary reason being Aldicta wanting to take full control over the Horn of Africa, and this is exactly what they'll be attempting to do as now they start to advance over in Teria and have some very good fighting against the Terian army. But we need to discuss the fact that now Teria is the strongest country in the world and has been for centuries. Ever since the Merodrian Empire collapsed back in episode 10, now we are in episode 20, literally at this point half of the series, Teria was the strongest nation in the world, and they've carried this title for, again, half of the series. But even in this coalition with a lot of countries in it, Teria, still as the strongest nation in the world, will be successful in repelling Aldicta and fighting them very efficiently, pushing them back almost to the border. Now there will also be some fighting over here on the main border between Aldicta and Teria over in Egypt. Now this fighting will not be nearly as big as in the Horn of Africa, as this is not Aldicta's main goal, and second of all, Teria has a way bigger foothold in here and have a lot more troops in here to defend, so yeah, these advancements will get pushed pretty badly. Now going over to Libya, Havia, this purple Libyan country, will start to advance into Teria as they hope to reclaim the former territories of Lovia, which was the old Libyan nation, and that's pretty much exactly what they'll go for as they start to push into Teria. But then some stuff goes very wrong for them, and this is the fact that they are fighting against the strongest country in the world, and even with all these allies that they have, they are one of the weaker nations in the world. So pretty much Teria will just send a couple units over in here and proceed to totally dismantle their army, and then they'll push into their territory. And let's give our condolences to Havia because these guys are getting absolutely dismantled by Teria, and Teria will pretty much just go take their capital, and with this we'll have Havia capitulating over to Teria, being the first country in this coalition that falls. And now Terian divisions will be sent over into the Mediterranean country in here. They'll also start to push over in here, even taking this little island, but overall their advancements will not be as big. Now definitely they could totally destroy the Mediterranean country, but they are gonna decide to instead use their troops on the other fronts because they're also fighting against Tanish, these guys in here, and these couple of Indian countries in here, so Teria can't really afford to use all their troops on one country. But now we are gonna go over here to Central Asia because Teria is at war with the Pakistani nation and the Purple nation, but this area is unclaimed, so both of the sides will move their armies through this unclaimed land, which is surprisingly legal. But they will both go and claim these territories, and now they will fight. But this front will go pretty awful for Teria, as they will start to get pushed greatly by the Pakistani nation and the Purple nation, which also have help from this Indian country in here, and also Teria fighting on a lot of fronts, including one with currently the second strongest country in the world, being Al-Dicta. It's a bit hard for them to send troops on these many fronts, even as the strongest country in the world. So because of this, they will fall back quite a bit to these troops. But this is actually a pretty smart strategy by Teria because, you know, these areas aren't currently claimed. They are just fighting over land that they don't even control. They are pretty much just occupying these territories. And it actually makes sense to lose on this front so that they can protect their homeland over in here to countries like Tanish or Gasius. So because of this, Teria will kind of leave these nations in here. They will kind of let them take these lands, but they will establish kind of an army wall of people over in here to protect the actual territories of Teria, so that these guys can get into their own territory. But even then, we'll see these guys be able to push pretty far up north, up to the border of this country in here. But then for once we'll see a country joining the side of Teria, and actually two countries, and these are gonna be some pretty shocking ones. And these countries joining on the alliance of Teria, which will mark by a trapezoid, will be Persdia and Lime India. And the reason for both of these countries joining the war is because they have beef with this brown country, which is in the coalition, and these guys want to take them out, so they'll be allying with Teria. And with the troops of Brown India being out over here in Central Asia, their homeland will be undefended, and this will lead to Persian troops and Lime Team troops hopping the border, and they'll pretty much destroy this country in a very short amount of time, in like a couple of weeks, as again their homeland wasn't defended, as they didn't really see these guys joining the war, but turns out they did, and they didn't only join to take out these guys, but they joined the coalition to save Teria. And now the armies and navies of both of these countries will put their armies on boats and get ready to disembark over into Central Asia to save Teria on this front. Now we'll have Gasius, or I mean if you wanna call it the Caucasian country. Now these guys will send their troops over the border in a similar goal as all the other countries on this coalition, and this is to take Teria down, as they do this pretty well and also get close to the Azerbaijani areas, which are some pretty valuable areas for Teria. I mean, they have oil, even though oil isn't really that important as of this point. Now definitely it's starting to have its first uses, but not as important as it will be in the World War One times. But even then, Terra does want to, well, defend these areas, and they will be pretty successful in doing so, as the Caucasian country will be unsuccessful in pushing further. Now definitely for the worst fighting in this war so far will be the fighting between Teria and Tanish, two countries that previously used to be allies back in the War of Empires. But similar to Aldicta, over the years some territorial disputes have appeared, more so being Tanish wanting to take Anatolian lands and Teria having aspirations to go into the Balkans. But with both of these countries now being riled up, they'll go to war, and the first one to act will be Tanish, as they quickly send their troops over into Therian lands on the Anatolian coast, as they hope to take the former territories of the Clarion Union. As although this isn't really true, Tanish kind of sees those people as descendants from Tanish. Now again, that's not true. The Clarion Union population, it's kind of its own religion and group of people, but even then they will start to send their armies through these lands. And the reason Tanish is doing so well is, one, they are a top 10 power, they've existed for a very long time, which allowed them to get strong, and second of all, they are being supplied by their two allies in here with the Siberian Union and Jetia or Line France. Now before Tanish entered the coalition, they kinda had a meeting with these two guys, and they both told Tanish that they'll give them full support for this war and they can join freely. Now Teria will also kind of push a bit the Mediterranean country. Now they don't do some like crazy advances, and this is mostly because they don't want to trigger the Siberian Union. I mean, they are already a top 10 power. I mean, in fact, they might be a top 5 power. I'm not sure if that's really the case, but even then they are a very strong country, so they would rather not challenge them. But also they keep pushing to, well, not get defeated and to keep their supremacy on this front. Now going over to Aldicta, will kind of have a land exchange happen, as now we see Teria kicking Aldicta fully out of their Egyptian lands, but instead we see Teria finally almost losing all of their Eritrean claims, as now a last battle is being fought over here in this little port, which is where Teria's former capital used to reside back when they first formed in episode 1. Now granted, Teria doesn't want to lose such historical lands, because if they lose these territories, then Aldicta could very easily hop in the Arabian Peninsula and take Teria's capital, and from there destroy their empire. So immediately Teria will get to work on destroying Aldicta, as now they also send their troops through here on the coast, hoping to, well, destroy Aldicta, and they are pretty dang successful. They do not really put this much focus on these western parts of Aldicta, as these aren't really too valuable, but they put a lot more focus into capturing these kind of central and coastal parts of Aldicta, hoping to cut down back to this territory and from there take Aldicta's entire coast. But then in Central Asia we see a bunch of Terian troops come over in here from the other fronts, which had gone way better, and now they are coming back to here to reclaim these lands, and now they fight the purple Central Asian team and the Pakistani team, having a lot of success in doing so and almost push these guys to their border. And it's pretty surprising how Teria is doing this well, and I mean, it's pretty obvious that they are getting helped by someone, but more exactly by who? Well, I'm glad to ask, because now we'll need to talk about an event that's happening over in here to the Pakistani nation. And this is the fact that Indian troops will finally arrive over to the shores of Pakistan. They'll debark over in here, take their capital, and from here proceed to take the entire coast of Pakistan, while also pushing into the invaded territories over in here. And now the Pakistani nation is pretty much speechless. They didn't think this was possible. They thought their capital was defended enough, But it wasn't, and with this we'll pretty much have this nation have a downfall. In the last episodes, in kind of the last 2 to 3 episodes, they've taken a lot of land over in here and expanded up north and in the west, but it turns out that it was for nothing because they still remain the weak nation, and now this shows as they are getting pushed by the Indian forces about to capitulate. Now we'll also have the Purple Nation withdraw a lot of their troops in here as they see their allies struggling, and they're also struggling too together with them. And now the front over here is starting to collapse as the Pakistani nation is struggling more and more. But about when they get to here, now we have the purple team going ahead and invading and sweeping very quickly through the territory of their ally as their government collapsed, and with this we see the collapse of the Pakistani nation as they get occupied by India and by their ally over in here. But their ally also has a very big issue, and this is the fact that they are a fairly small and weak nation, so really they can't afford to control all these lands. Now they have in charge a lot of territories that really they can't control. This is like a huge amount of land, and because of this we'll have their army stretching very thin, and with this we'll have the Terran armies and also the Indian armies through here start to march through this country's territories as they are starting to lose everything they have gained. And then as we see Terran armies march into their nation and make a spearhead to their capital, this country will end up surrendering and calling for peace with Teria and their entire alliance. And with this we see this front over in here falling to the Terians. Now with this confidence on the Trapezoid Alliance, we'll see Romia and Nambium join the Trapezoid Alliance on the side of Teria to help them, but this is gonna trigger a country to join the coalition against Teria on the Circle Alliance. Well, this is understandable. We see Derlandia, currently the third strongest country in the world, join the coalition against Teria on the Circle Alliance, hoping to not only defeat Teria, which is a country that fought in the Derlandian coalition and is one of the primary reasons to the Derlandian collapse, but also they hope to defeat Nambium and Romia and re-annex these countries under a new empire. Now immediately seeing the fighting Nambium and Romia, both of these will have a pretty big starting advantage against Derlandia. Now Derlandia used to be a very big powerhouse, and they still kind of are, but against these two countries they kind of get overpowered as they lose their capital over in here. And also we see Nambium helping Romia in taking the entire Denmark peninsula, and now Romia will kind of get distracted from their main goal, which was to help their ally in Teria. And the reason why they joined is because, although I didn't really say this, Romia and Teria are actually very friendly with each other, and similar to Nambium, Teria and Nambium are also very close. Pretty much the friendship between all these three kind of solidified during the Derlandian coalition, and even more here now as Derlandia seems to also die once again. And if Derlandia does lose this will mean pretty much the end of their empire, as after a third very bad war lost over in here, definitely Derlandia would no longer be allowed to exist. But then a switch around will happen because something will kind of click, and Derlandia will actually start to win against the Romians and Nambium. They actually go around and retake their capital, and this is very strange. I mean, this is like some very bad defeat of Romia and of Nambium. We see Romia getting fully kicked out, and we see Romian troops starting to get pushed over in here into their territory by Derlandia. Now this is like very strange because, like, you know, Derlandia is a strong country, you can't really deny this, but like, I mean, when you put the forces of Nambium and Romia together, they pretty easily overpower Derlandia. So what's happening? Well, to put it simply, supplies from these two guys. And even more, pretty much the entire alliance will have to send troops over here to their landia, and more exactly, these countries know that, yeah, probably we are not gonna be able to defeat Teria, they have already gained a very big advantage over us, but maybe we could try to cut down on some of their allies. So many countries will actually withdraw their troops from Teria and focus the fighting over in here, which is actually gonna be very good for Teria, as their allies have pretty much sacrificed for them. Now granted, yes, Teria does want and tries to help their allies, but it's pretty hard doing so because, they are cut off by the seas from their allies, and also they are stuck over here in the Middle East where they don't really have that good of a sea access compared to like these countries over here on the western part of Europe and into North Africa. So Teria will not really be able to supply their allies despite them really wanting to do so. So pretty much the biggest help that they can do is to sweep as quickly as possible over the rest of these countries, as now they start to invade into Gassius, they quickly go and take their capital and push up to the border with Danesia. Then eventually we see Gassius capitulating, and as we see Terian troops start to advance into Danesia through their territories over here in the Azov Sea and into the Crimean Peninsula, Danesia will pretty much be exhausted of troops, and they will actually call for peace with Teria and leave the coalition. Now the Terian population is kind of heartbroken seeing pretty much all the coalition members moving their focus over to Europe, so they will decide that the best way to get revenge on them is by destroying one of their own allies, and this is Tanish, as now we see Teria with a very nationalistic army send their troops into Tanish, and with a very revengeful mind they will start to invade over into their territories, territories that they haven't fought in for centuries, and the last battles they have fought over in here were with the Romani Empire, and Teria is pretty heartbroken that they have to do this, but they'll do this in order to save their allies and to save their country. But it's pretty much thanks to Teria that Tanish had survived the War of Empires, so it's pretty scummy of Tanish to now betray them. Therefore we'll see Teria now doing so, as we see them taking the entire Thrace area. Then we see Teria go over in here, snag the capital of Tanish and proceed to sweep across their territory, and with this we see Tanish dying over to Teria. Now the Triangle Alliance, being very sad about this, they'll decide to pull an Uno reverse card on Teria, and this is taking their own allies, being Nambium and Romia, as now we see their Landian troops moving across Nambium. But when Nambium loses their last occupation zones over here in Denmark, we'll see Nambium leaving the coalition, and now we only have Romia alone. Poor Romia has gained its independence only a couple episodes ago, and they have existed for a grand total of 4 episodes, but it is today that their independence will be destroyed and they'll get reincorporated into their landia, as they start to lose a lot of territory over in here to pretty much the entire coalition armies. Now Romia isn't Teria, so they'll not be able to hold out as they did, but they have done something greater, and this is the fact that they had bought Teria enough time to militarize their army and to fight on all these fronts to be able to defend their empire and themselves. But with this we see the capital of Romia falling, and we see Romia capitulating over to Derlandia. Teria's biggest ally has now fallen, and Teria is very sad about this. So now they'll decide that enough is enough, and they'll end this coalition by destroying the second strongest country in the world, the nation that has started this coalition, being Aldicta. We'll see Teria sweeping across these territories that Aldicta has occupied out of them and reclaim all of their Eritrean lands, followed by them going over in here and taking the entire Aldictan Red Sea axis, which is very bad for Aldicta. And now Teria ventures out into the Somaliland territories, which are the original places where Teria has begun their nation back in episode 1. And it is today that they will reclaim these territories. They will make a very successful landing in Socotra Island, followed by them retaking the territories of Somaliland. And with this they have reconquered all of their coastal territories from Aldicta. And now we'll see the battle of the Aldictan capital begin. Asteria moves their troops over in here and starts a spearhead to the Aldictan capital. We'll have divisions going like this, starting to encircle the capital. Then we'll see another division in here, which will push greatly through Aldicta, and we'll see the capital being encircled. Teria will go capture the capital of Aldicta. Now the capital of Aldicta is one of the most defended cities in the world, and this is the first time that this city has ever fallen, and this sends a very big message across the world. Teria is the strongest nation in the world, and now they are showing it, as now Aldicta is pretty much in shambles. Their leader is dead, and now we see Teria starting to move across Aldicta's territories, as there's a pretty bad line of succession in Aldicta. There's multiple generals that take control of multiple areas. Each of them ends up kind of declaring martial law over their territories, and this leads to the Aldictan army pretty much becoming useless. And after a while we'll see one great general take full control of all of them, and he will make the decision to capitulate over to Teria. And with this we see the exiting of Aldicta from the coalition. And for the last nation in this coalition, this is the Mediterranean country, and after a very short amount of fighting where they very quickly lose, they will also decide to surrender in order to save their nation. And with this, Teria had done it. Teria had won the coalition against all these countries, and they had won the coalition against the Circle Alliance. Now about the Pokian Union, because they were also in the coalition, I mean, fair enough, they went ahead and made peace with Teria as they didn't want to fight. It would have been pretty hard to fight, so with this they just make peace, and now we can take a look at the Great Peace Treaty of Teria's capital. This is the map before, and here it is after. Now this map looks very different, and it has some crazy changes. First of all, going to the Indian Peninsula, we see that the Brown Indian country gets partitioned between Lime India and Persia, as this country no longer exists. Now going to Central Asia, this region has a lot of changes. First of all, these Grey and Lime nations gain land, although they didn't participate in the war, but Teria decided to be nice and give them a couple pieces of land. Then the Purple Asian nation, this country has lost during the war, but we actually see them gaining territory from their ally, which they have invaded when these guys collapsed, and because of this they got their territories. Also they have gotten a bit of territory over in here in the unclaimed lands. The Pakistani nation had gained lands over in here into Central Asia, but also had lost a lot of their northern areas over in here to their ally. But most of it goes to Teria, as they occupy the most of Central Asia, pretty much all the other lands that were in here. Then we see over into Caucasia, we see Teria fully annexing Gasius and taking this little piece of land from Danesia. Then going to Greece, we see that Tanish is no longer with us, as they get fully annexed by Teria, and Teria didn't trust these guys. They already got betrayed by them. So because of this, Teria had fully annexed them. Then going into North Africa, Havia is no longer with us. Again, they have been previously annexed by the Merovingian Empire at the beginning of the series, and now by Teria. So these guys are really unlucky. And their ally over in here does still remain alive, but they have to cede over to Teria 2 provinces in here. And finally, the elephant in the room, Aldicta. Now Aldicta had lost very badly during the war, but we see Teria only taking this couple pieces of land from Al-Dikta, taking their access to the Red Sea. Then to the other countries that had fought during the war. Over in here into Europe, we see that Romia also is no longer with us, as they get re-annexed into their Landia, and their Landia, for like the 50th time in history, retakes this piece of land and becomes again a top power in the world. But for the final event of this video, we'll go over here to Asia and to the Indian subcontinent, and this is because we are gonna have the Himalayan mountains get discovered and explored, and with this finally Asia gets fully 100% explored as well, together with Africa and Europe, and now all of the old world or Afro-Eurasia is now discovered. And that will do it for today's video. In the next episode, we'll kind of take a bit of a break from war and we'll go back to looking at explorations and expansions by countries. But yeah, that will do it for today's video. I hope you liked it and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.